Welcome to Rubber Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast where we explore all things cinema. Today's video is a re-edited review that I did in 2021 with Rukiah Richards, who runs a fantastic Instagram page dedicated to John Cassavetes, which I highly recommend checking out. It's at johncassavetes.official. I will leave the link in the description box below for where you can check it out. We, in 2021, Rukiah and I did a live, back when I did live videos, we did a double bill review of exploring John's studio films that he did in the early 60s, Too Late Blues and A Child is Waiting. And when I say studio films, what I mean is that they were produced by major Hollywood studios in the early 1960s. This is just before John made Faces, and he was trying to work within the studio system. And the films Too Late Blues and Child is Waiting, he hated both. Now I think that they're better than perhaps he felt, and this review will explore why we feel that way. So we did them live. I've actually done another separate review from that live review where I just focused on A Child is Waiting, and now I'm doing another re-edited video of the Too Late Blues section of that live video review. And the reason for that is, as you all know, anyone who's followed my channel will know that in the last couple of years, more than 2 years, I began to use stills from the films that I'm reviewing when I'm talking about specific moments from the films to give you, the audience, a visual reference and visual experience of exactly what we're talking about. And so I've gone back to the videos I did live or older videos and re-edited them in order to highlight those reviews visually speaking as well, to enrich the conversations. And so here is our review of, again, just focusing on Too Late Blues from 2021. So just to kick off with the studio films, Too Late Blues from 1961 was the first film John Cassavetes did under Paramount Pictures. So just if anyone doesn't know, just the plot according to IMDb is Ghost is an ideological musician who would rather play his blues in the park to the birds than compromise himself. However, when he meets and falls in love with the beautiful singer Jess, Jess Polanski, she comes between him and his band members, and he leaves his dreams behind in search of fame. Okay, that's not quite right. You never know sometimes with these IMDb plots, but that's generally it's about his idealism. How did you feel about Too Late Blues?
I actually really liked the film because it was one of those. I love the script of the film. I think that it's just a fantastic script. I think with a lot of John Cassavetes' work, it almost seems like it's improvised because it's just so wonderful. Like you've got actors talking over each other, and you've got them, sort of working with props, and so it's nice to kind of see that. But it's actually really scrutinized. Like he's actually tried very, very hard with the scripts, but it just seems so effortless when the actors say the words.
Yeah.
I actually quite liked the film just simply because of the studio. I like the film in terms of the story. I actually think that it's almost in a kind of retro way, sort of based on him. That he wants to people to appreciate his work, and he'd rather have someone who appreciates his work than sell to people and do it for fame. So I actually like the film in that sense, but I really do feel that it was miscast. I think it had so much potential to be such a fantastic film.
Yeah, I agree. Who did you find was miscast?
I think both of the leads were miscast. I think that John Cassavetes originally wanted Montgomery Clift and his wife Gena Rowlands to play, and I think that if they had, it would have just been so beautiful. I think it would just been such an amazing film, and I think everyone would be talking about it today. It would have gone down as, you know, like a really famous film, almost like The Apartment, because it was the same sort of time as well. But I
Yeah.
do think they were both very, very miscast.
Yeah, I mean, Montgomery Clift was so incredible, and of course Gena Rowlands. I think it definitely would be more known today if they had been in it. What do you know much about all the problems that went into as to why John ended up hating this movie?
I think that a lot of John's films that he did with studios that he ended up sort of leaving and sort of hating was simply because of the fact that there were so many creative differences. He wanted a film that would resonate with an audience and would be real and would be gritty,
Hmm.
and would sort of touch upon some real issues, you know, and he also liked them to be very loose so they're not scrutinized for a specific topic. But he obviously, there will be a producer and there will be a studio that would want it to be glamorous and would want it to be something that can sell and something that can make money. And obviously, John didn't want to make films like that. And this is why later on in his work, some of the masterpieces he's made are in his house with his friends. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just it's amazing. But I mean, I know that he did definitely want Montgomery Clift, who he regarded as being one of the best actors of all
yeah.
time, and obviously his wife. And I just feel like there wasn't a lot of chemistry between Bobby Darin and Stella Stevens. I didn't think there was any chemistry, to be honest, between the two characters. I wasn't rooting for them. Usually, when you see two characters on screen, you root for them. You want them to do well. You get sad when they're not making it together.
Hmm.
You know, you want them to be together, and you appreciate them, and you feel for them, you empathize with them. And I didn't really feel that with these characters. And I think that John would know that when he's making these films. He was just such a gifted artist, and a lot of people forget that he's also a tremendous actor, and
Right.
so he will see that in his actors, you know, when they can't, when they don't have that chemistry on screen.
Yeah, no, absolutely, very well said. And I don't know if I'm sure you've read Ray Carney's Cassavetes on
Yes.
Cassavetes, but he has about a 20-page chapter on both of these films, and just in
Yeah.
terms of for anyone who may want to know more about the problems that went into this, you can read the book. It's a fantastic book. But just to sum it up, was that he had done Shadows in 1959 independently, and because it had done well in Europe and financially. It's funny that Rukaya, you say that a lot of people in England don't know him, and the irony is that's Shadows is where it did the Shadows did the best in London, in England.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
which then launched him as a director. But then from there, so he would get. They wanted, a lot of those art house films, Fellini, Antonioni, Godard, in Hollywood. They wanted to capitalize on that, so they thought to use Cassavetes to make small budgeted films that had that same kind of feeling. But the problem was that John liked to rewrite as he was going on and improv and change things around, and he felt it wasn't. And of course, with a studio, you can't do that because it means they have
No.
to stop, and it's going to cost all kinds of money. So once they started shooting, he couldn't change anything. He had to stick to the script. Which infuriated him because he couldn't understand why they wouldn't care about their product. If it should be that you want to make the best product, not just save money, but all they cared about um, was saving money. And then so apart from the casting, then the producer told him to cut a long sequence, a dream sequence, right after he gets really mad at the band and storms off on everybody. There was a long sequence that he insisted on being cut, and even at the end when Stella Stevens is there and they're all singing. He wanted an upbeat ending, and apparently she was supposed to walk out. It wasn't supposed to be so like, oh, well, they're all going to get back together. He wanted it to just be hopeful, not necessarily happy,
Yes.
and tied up in a knot like that. But those were the main problems, and was exactly why, as a result, he hated it. But I think it is pretty good. I mean, to me, it's, yeah. I mean, that whole thing of, I think Ghost, who Bobby Darin plays, is very much the Cassavetes like character. He's an idealist. He wants to live life on his own terms. So, instead of a guy making movies, it's a guy who's a jazz musician who doesn't want to just sell out and be commercial. He wants to play his own music with his own band, and he's going to live on his terms. And that was so what Cassavetes did with Shadows. And then, in the movie, of course, he sells out and goes commercial. I don't know if John necessarily felt he did that. People felt at the time that he did do that with Shadows. Of course, as I'm sure you know, Rakaya, he reshot the whole movie, and people, a lot of film critics and the avant-garde filmmaking scene in New York felt that he was selling out. But I don't think he ever felt that. I think he perhaps used that for the film. The only thing, I mean, I find some of those scenes so engaging, like in the restaurant where they all get into a fight with those guys and he backs down.
Yes.
So much happens in that moment in terms of suddenly he was the leader. Everyone looked to this guy for wisdom. Everyone admired him. Everyone thought he was great, and like he was the leader of this gang. And then all of a sudden, when he's looked at as a coward, backing down from a fight in front of his girlfriend as well, he ruins everything around him. He throws the one Stella Stevens out. He breaks up the band. He says they're nothing without him, and he goes his own way. The only thing, I don't know how you felt about this, Rukaya. I felt that I could understand him, because of he was obviously very insecure. Like if any other color came through, where he wasn't just a leader, that he wanted to be seen, his insecurity was so strong that he had to destroy everything around. But I felt it seemed to be extreme to then go and want to be, he goes to the agent, just get me any gigs, and he goes commercial. I don't know if that was enough of a shift there. I just didn't feel, it just seemed like it happened very quickly. I don't know. What did you think? Did you think that was a bit pushed?
I think that when they're fighting and he's obviously seen as a coward, and she comes over to him and she sort of professes her love for him,
Right.
he can sort of feel that maybe she's feeling sorry for him and she's feeling pitiful. Whereas I don't necessarily believe that. I think that she genuinely does love him in that moment.
Yeah, me too.
And I think for him to sort of show his harder side, his way of showing it is to sort of say, "Well, go home," and to reject her. And I think in that moment, that was quite authentic for me.
But yeah, that I liked. Yeah,
I think that the rest of it was, I think the rest of it where he sort of sells out and he tells his agent to find him a gig, and he lets go of all of his teammates, and he sort of says, bandmates, and he says to them that he is the one who owns the band and it's his voice. I kind of feel like that is, like you say, pushed, but I think it's a trigger from the fact that Stella is with someone else when she says, I'm obviously, I've got someone here. I think that is what the thing is. I don't think it's really necessarily maybe about the bar fight. I think it was his emotions from the fact that if he doesn't have her, and it was probably his worst nightmare, that she would obviously then go off, because she does say that at the beginning anyway, that she's been around. And I think that is his worst nightmare, and he kind of feels that if he doesn't have her, he has nothing, so he's happy to drop them all. And the fact that it's one of his bandmates, maybe he knew that as well, that it was him, because he did know that he was taking her home. And so I kind of feel that he's kind of now disregarded them all as being traitors.
Yeah, you know what, that makes sense. And I think, now when you put it that way, and from what Ray Carney wrote in his book, that right after that scene, of course, there was a long sequence they cut. And I
Yeah.
think the audience would have understood more of his temperament and his psychology if they hadn't. Because I think it's him going out in a I shouldn't quote this because I'm not sure if I have it exactly right, but it was like a drunken night where he gets into a lot of fights and a lot of self-destructive behavior. And I think that would have worked better. So why the studio decided, let's just do away with that. I imagine it's because they're so used to plot-driven films. It's like, just move it forward instead of giving the audience more of an understanding of why this guy's doing what they're doing. They probably just figured move it forward. But I think as a result, it felt very random.
It did.
Yeah.
Choppy.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it just feels very choppy, and I kind of understand, why John would want to disregard it and not kind of, have it as one of his films. It makes a lot of sense if you're cutting out parts that he would have tried very, very hard with, and people don't even get to see it. It obviously, I'm an artist. If someone didn't allow me to paint something that I wanted to paint and removed something that I tried a lot with just because it was aesthetically pleasing, it would break my heart, and I would want to say this is nothing to do with me. So I do understand, where he's coming from in that respect.
Yeah, no, I totally understand it. And it's funny because sometimes when, even myself as an actor, you think, well, can cutting a couple of scenes really make a big difference? But yeah, I mean, Jesus, it can. It's amazing what a few, things that hit the floor as a result of a studio interference can change so much in terms of what the audience's experiences was meant to be. And of course, as I said, with that ending, it seems like a happy ending. And John just wanted it to be optimistic. He didn't want to just say that they're going to all get back together. It's not going to be that easy. Nothing is that easy. And I think it was meant to just be hopeful. But yeah, I mean, it's too bad because like I said, it's got some incredible, engaging scenes with Ghost. It's funny because when you say that you felt Darin was Miss Cass, I actually quite liked him in it. I think Clift would have been better just because Clift is a better actor, but because he was a musician and he had that jazz street talk so natural. That monologue where he tells them all, "You guys are nothing without me, man." Like it was very New York. It was a very street jazz way of talking. I felt he was good. I felt he was authentic for that. I even Stella Stevens when he comes back and she says that she's with another guy and she says, "Don't you dare come in here." I quite liked her in it. I mean, her character was interesting as well because she's a woman who was only seen for her good looks and nothing more, and to be taken advantage of. And people are saying, "Oh yeah," making empty promises to her that she's got all this talent and she's great and this and that. And he really saw her for who she was. I mean, he respected her. He saw her as an individual. He saw her as for who she really was. He saw her potential. And I thought that was quite a beautiful thing, to just that they really saw each other. But I do agree that obviously the two of them, Rowlands and Clift, man, that would have been something else, So it's too bad that didn't work out. Did you? Another thing I noticed is when towards the end when she goes to the washroom and tries to almost commit suicide, that he had a number of women in his films do that, like in Faces that happens, and Minnie and Mousekewitz that happens, and A Woman Under the Influence that happens. Did you ever notice that ongoing theme?
I think that it was a pattern in John Cassavetes films, and I think that the brilliant thing about the way that he portrayed that was he always showed them as very sympathetic,
right,
in the sense that they had been led to it by a male role, and how that male
Yes.
role was so damaging to the woman that she felt that
Yeah.
she had no other choice. And I think that that's a very clever way of showing that it's a very strong woman, especially because his wife was playing many of the roles. Gena Rowlands, she used to play them very strong, even in A Woman Under the Influence, where she is very disturbed. You can tell she's a very strong woman, but because of her surroundings, because of the people around her,
Yeah.
predominantly men who don't know how to talk to her and to understand her, she's put into a state of not being understood, and therefore she's become the way that she is. But I don't think that he necessarily wrote weak women. I think he wrote very strong women,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sort of very dominating male roles that sort of damage the women. And I think that's very clever from his writing.
Very, very well said. That's true, and that's when I saw that scene again, it just stuck out to me. This is an ongoing theme, and yeah, it's always because of the dominant male, not seeing them or controlling them or whatever it have you. Not that he was necessarily totally always. Not that he was saying that all men are bad. He had a lot of empathy for men and women. But there's another really interesting moment is when she brings him over to her place, and she gets changed and they're about to have sex, and he says no because he knows that she's doing that because she thinks that that's all he wants from her, and she's saying, I don't just want that. And that was another thing that was really ahead of itself. I don't even think I've seen that since, where a guy who is he's not rejecting her, he's just saying, you're doing this for the wrong reasons. And I mean, how often have you seen that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, not too often. I'm just going to say hello to in the chat room, Gray 1951. He loves David Ratkin's score. Yeah, absolutely. Me as well. Thanks so much for your comment. And feel free for the people watching to comment and ask any questions.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link, patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. Patreon is exclusive content that I create month in and month out. And as a subscriber, you are able to vote on polls and contribute to what I do on Patreon month in and month out. So head over to the link for full details. You can also leave a donation directly to my YouTube channel by pressing the thanks link, which you will find directly below the video frame. Just click on the thanks link and you can leave a donation there if you choose to. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. It is absolutely free to do so. By pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movies logo, you will see it floating above my head in the top left corner to your top left. In just a second, just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes. Also, click the like button and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of this episode. Also, you can also share the episode. All of these things are what produce traction to my YouTube channel. So I appreciate you watching and thank you again. And I will see you in the next episode.